Welcome back to Midnight Whispers. Don't forget to subscribe, turn off the lights, and let's step into something you can't unhear. I had always thought that living alone would finally give me the quiet I craved. Yet, that quiet became oppressive in a way I never expected, especially on the night I received that video. I remember lying on my couch after a long day, drifting in and out of sleep, with the television humming low in the background. The kind of drowsiness where your thoughts slide around like they're coated in fog. I must have fallen asleep deeper than usual, because the next thing I noticed was the strange glow from my phone, lighting up the room like a tiny lighthouse calling me back. I didn't remember setting any alarms or expecting any messages. So seeing a notification banner that read "one new video message" made my stomach jolt in a way that felt unreasonably physical. I sat there staring at it for a few seconds, thinking maybe it was my friend messing with me or some glitch. But the sender was an unknown number that wasn't even formatted like a normal contact ID. I tapped it open despite the little warning bells going off inside me, and the loading circle spun and spun as if whatever was on the other side was hesitating to be seen. When the video finally played, I felt the blood in my body drain downward, like gravity had doubled its strength all at once. It was a recording of me in real time, sleeping right there on my couch in the exact same position I was in just minutes before. The angle was low floor level, like the camera had been placed inches from where my face rested, capturing the slow rise and fall of my chest and the faint twitch of my fingers as I dreamed. At first, I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe it was footage from earlier. But the blanket I had just pulled up around my shoulders was already in the video, matching perfectly. My eyes darted around the room, scanning each corner for any sign of a device or some intruder. Yet everything remained still, ordinary, untouched. The silence grew heavy, as though the air itself was leaning in closer, waiting for my reaction. I replayed the video, hoping for some glitch, but it was unmistakably fresh, the timestamp matching the exact minute I had woken up. I felt like someone had pressed a cold hand against the back of my neck, pushing me forward into a reality I didn't want to face. I checked the front door, the windows, every possible entrance, and found them all locked from the inside, just the way I left them. My hands shook so badly that I nearly dropped my phone, and the screen smeared under my fingers as though my fear was staining it. I tried calling the number back, but it instantly went to some automated message saying the line didn't exist. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a prank or a glitch. It was something deliberate. I kept asking myself who could have been in my apartment without leaving any trace. But every answer I considered tightened the knot in my chest. The video kept replaying in my mind like an echo, each frame digging a little deeper into my nerves. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night, sitting upright with every light in the apartment turned on, waiting for any sound that didn't belong to me. The hours crawled by, stretching thin as if the night itself didn't want to end. By morning, I wasn't sure if I was exhausted or numb, or if the difference even mattered anymore. The sun slipped through the blinds like a lifeline I didn't deserve. But even the daylight didn't wash away the crawling dread left behind. The next day felt unreal, as though I was walking through a film set made to resemble my life, but not actually belonging to me. I kept replaying that video in my mind, trying to catch some detail I had missed, something that would anchor it to reality. Instead of the nightmare it felt like, every sound in my apartment seemed exaggerated, from the creak of the floorboards to the hum of the refrigerator, as if my senses were dialed up too high. When I finally forced myself to watch the video again in daylight, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The faintest shift of movement behind me in the far corner of the frame, so subtle that if you blinked you miss it. It didn't look like a person or even an animal. It was more like a distortion, a warping of the air itself, a ripple that shouldn't have existed. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I felt sure I was going to be sick. I paused the frame over and over, zooming in until the image broke into digital grains. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, that distortion remained. I told myself it had to be a trick of the light, maybe from the street lamps outside. But the angle didn't make any sense. The more I stared at it, the more it seemed to pulse, like it was reacting to being observed. I slammed my laptop shut, the sound startling me so badly I let out a shaky laugh that didn't feel like it belonged to me. I tried to distract myself with mundane things, washing dishes, organizing drawers, scrolling through social media. But the heavy sense of being watched clung to me like a damp coat. Every time I crossed the living room, I glanced at the spot in the corner where the distortion had been. I started checking my phone constantly, terrified of seeing another video notification pop up. That night, I tried sleeping in my bedroom instead of the couch, hoping being further from that corner would give me some peace. But lying there in the darkness, every tiny noise felt amplified, and the walls seemed too close, like they were bending inward. I kept thinking about how the camera must have been placed so close to my face while I slept, and the idea of someone standing over me made my skin crawl. I tried calling a friend to stay over, but every call went to voicemail, which only deepened the knot forming in my chest. Hours passed, and the glow of my phone became my only comfort as I scrolled with restless fingers, just to hear the soft clicking sound of the screen. But even that wasn't enough to drown out the growing sense that something was wrong, not just around me, but inside me. I finally drifted off sometime near dawn, though I couldn't call it sleep, more like slipping unconscious under the weight of pure exhaustion. When I woke, I felt a heaviness on my chest, not physical, but emotional, as though dread had settled itself there overnight. My bedroom felt colder than usual, and for a moment, I thought I saw movement near the doorway. But when I blinked, it was gone. I told myself I was imagining things. Stress had a way of creating ghosts out of nothing. But a part of me, a small traitorous part, whispered that maybe it wasn't my imagination at all. I considered going to the police, but what would I even say? That someone sent me a video of me sleeping in an empty apartment. They'd ask how someone got in, how they got out, and I had no answers. I felt trapped between disbelief and terror, unsure which direction was safer to lean into. I made coffee just to have something warm to hold, but even that felt wrong, like my hands weren't steady enough to belong to me. The day seemed to stretch on endlessly, each minute dragging behind it a weight I couldn't shake. And through it all, the memory of that video clung to my thoughts like a bruise. By the third night, the exhaustion began to warp my sense of time, blurring hours together like wet paint smearing across a canvas. I kept trying to convince myself that I was overreacting, that fear was making me see patterns where none existed. Yet the tension in my body never eased. I decided to stay awake, telling myself I'd confront whatever was happening, instead of letting it creep around me unseen. I sat on the living room floor with all the lights on, staring at the spot where the camera angle in the video had been, trying to imagine how someone could have crawled close enough to film me. Every time I shifted, the floor creaked under me in a way that felt unfamiliar, like I was hearing my apartment for the first time. Hours passed without anything happening, and at some point, I began to doubt the entire event, wondering if maybe I had dreamed it all. But just as that thought began to settle, my phone buzzed with a sound so sharp it cut through the room like a blade. My heart hammered painfully as I reached for the screen, terrified of what I'd see. Another video message, same number, same blank contact name, same eerie stillness in the notification banner. For a long moment, I couldn't open it. My thumb hovered over the screen as my pulse thudded behind my eyes. When I finally tapped it, the screen went dark for a heartbeat before the video began to play. This time, it wasn't footage of me sleeping. It was footage of me sitting exactly where I was at that moment, on the living room floor, staring into the corner as though the person filming was inches behind me. The angle was so precise that it felt like I was watching a live view of myself, but the timestamp showed it had been recorded minutes earlier. My breath hitched, and I twisted around, scanning the room with eyes that suddenly felt too wide. Yet nothing had moved, and no one was there. The idea that something had been close enough to film me without making a sound made my whole body tense until my muscles trembled. Then I noticed something else behind me in the video. The same distortion from the first recording appeared again. Only this time it seemed more defined, more intentional. It pulsed slowly, almost like it was breathing, expanding and contracting in a rhythm that didn't feel accidental. I dropped the phone, scrambling backward, until my spine hit the wall with a force that knocked the wind out of me. The room felt smaller, tighter, as though the air had thickened into something viscous. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My voice trapped behind the fear closing around my throat. I pressed myself against the wall, listening for any movement, any sign that someone was still there. But all I heard was my own ragged breathing and the faint buzz of the phone vibrating on the floor. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. I couldn't tell anymore. Eventually, I picked up the phone again, staring at the paused frame of the distortion behind me. A sick realization settled in. The distortion wasn't something in the corner. It was following me. Every video, frame by frame, it was closer. My vision blurred for a moment as a wave of dizziness washed over me, and I pressed my hand to the cold floor to steady myself. I felt tears burn at the corners of my eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer, overwhelming pressure of terror. I had never felt so profoundly unsafe in a place meant to protect me. I didn't know what to do, where to go, or how to outrun something I couldn't even describe. The floor felt like it was tilting, like gravity was being tugged in different directions. And I wondered if fear alone could distort reality. I forced myself to stand, though my legs shook so violently I nearly collapsed. I backed toward the front door, fumbling with the locks, desperate to get out before anything else could happen. But even after stepping into the hallway, the fear didn't lessen. It clung to me, a presence that refused to let me go. I didn't know where to run, only that staying meant something worse was coming. I spent hours wandering through the night, drifting from one well-lit place to another, as though light alone could keep whatever was happening from reaching me. I sat in an all-night diner for nearly an hour without ordering anything, just watching the windows for any sign of movement, my hands trembling against the Formica table. The employees cast uneasy glances in my direction, likely thinking I was unstable, but I couldn't bring myself to care. When my phone buzzed again, I felt every muscle in my body lock up, a cold shock shooting down my spine like ice water poured inside my bones. I didn't want to look, didn't want to know, but curiosity and fear pushed my trembling hand toward the screen. No message this time, just a single photo. I opened it, and the image made my breath freeze mid-inhale. It was a picture of me sitting right there in the diner, hunched over the table exactly as I was in that moment. Only the photo was taken from just outside the window. The timestamp was less than a minute old. My heart pounded so loudly I could feel it in my ears, and I pressed my palm over my mouth to stop a sound I didn't trust myself not to make. I whipped my head toward the window, but the street outside was empty, washed in the pale glow of streetlights and the hum of passing cars in the distance. The sense of being observed from a place I couldn't pinpoint pressed against my nerves like needles. I fled the diner without a plan, stumbling into the cold night air, as though the pavement itself might swallow me. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I couldn't stay still long enough for another picture, another video. I kept glancing back over my shoulder, expecting to see someone following me. Yet the sidewalks remained empty, except for the flickering glow of distant traffic signals. I ducked into a convenience store, hoping the bright lights and constant cameras would act as some kind of barrier, even if it was nothing more than wishful thinking. I stood between the aisles, breathing hard, gripping my shaking phone like a lifeline. Then a new notification appeared. Not a video, not a photo, but a single text message from that same impossible number. It said only, "Turn around." My vision tunneled, and for a second, the world seemed to tilt sideways. I didn't want to look, didn't want to confirm what my mind screamed was waiting behind me. But the weight of the moment dragged my gaze backward, as though my body was no longer under my command. I spun around, expecting anyone, but the aisle was empty. The hum of refrigerators, the only sound breaking the suffocating tension. Yet for a split second, just before I fully turned, I saw it reflected in the glass of the freezer door, the distortion, the shifting mass of air that seemed to press forward like it was learning how to form itself into something solid. The sight of it sent a jolt through me, so strong my knees nearly buckled. I stumbled backward, knocking over a display of chips, the crash echoing through the store like an alarm. The clerk shouted something, but his voice felt distant, muffled under the rush of panic pulsing through me. I fled out the door, running until my lungs burned, until my legs trembled so violently I could barely stay upright. Eventually, I reached my apartment building, though I had no memory of choosing to go there. As if something pulled me back, I stood outside the door, dread pooling in my stomach, so heavily it felt like an anchor. I didn't want to go inside, but I also couldn't stay out in the open where that thing, whatever it was, could watch me from any angle. With shaking hands, I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the air stale and unnervingly still. My phone buzzed again as the door clicked shut behind me. A final video, with a slow exhale that felt like it emptied my soul. I opened it. The footage was from inside my apartment, filmed from the corner near the ceiling, showing me entering just seconds earlier. But behind me, clearly, unmistakably, was the distortion, now taller, closer, forming a shape that resembled something almost human, but not quite. Something learning how to mimic reality frame by frame. As the video ended, my screen froze on the final image, the distortion leaning toward me, its form almost touching the back of my head. And in that silent moment, before I could scream or run or understand, the lights in my apartment flickered once and died, and I realized with absolute certainty that I was no longer alone.